Okay, first, yeah, I don't really think of image very much, but I like
Hmm.
this word troubadour because it's, I think, a Languedoc word originally. And trouba means to write music, to compose.
Hmm.
So the original meaning of troubadour was a singer-songwriter and somebody that moved, like you say, moved from one place to another. And that's very much what I do. That feels very natural. Um, I think since I left Oyster Band, it's been a more creative period in my life, really, because it's wonderful to play in a band. You get help from other people, but also sometimes it stops you from going in certain directions.
Hmm.
And after I'd made my first record, I felt very free to try things, and I've been quite experimental with some things and trying different directions. And I'm glad I had that freedom. And I think it does suit me much better to be solo right now, I must say.
Hmm.
I think I've met some of them. It's certainly been a good idea and it's worth doing. Uh, and I feel that um, I'm pleased with the work that I've done, the
Hmm.
songs I've written, but there's a lot more to do. I feel I'm only just starting. I still feel I'm just beginning, really. I'm trying to develop my music all the time and my singing and my writing. And I just hope I get better.
I hear you coming from the rustle of your clothes.
Oh, that's a very big question. I
Yeah,
think
I
I
imagine.
I see each album as a complete unit in itself. And for my first album, I stuck to a very narrow theme, really. I almost created a character, a historical character. Uh, but I didn't want to stick with that. So the next album, Palace of Tears, I didn't do any folk songs, and I wrote all the songs, and I really wanted to explore the writing more on the second album. Uh, there's not much I would have done differently looking back. No, not much. I don't want to, because I sort of made the best decisions I could at the time. And for each album that I've made, if there are going to be 12 songs on the album, I always record 14, 15,
Okay.
and then try and get the best balance. So I don't start completely from scratch, and I'm always writing and thinking, making notes about songs. So it is a sort of a continuous process, really.
For signs, stay a while, lead me through to.
Well, I feel there's a lack of heroes, particularly in Britain.
Hmm.
There was a lot of political cowardice, particularly around the Brexit uh,
Hmm.
vote, and I think it's. I'd like to see more people sticking their necks out, really, and in lots of ways. There's a lot of political cowardice around, but also it made me think about the whole idea of heroes. In English, the word hero originally meant the center of the story, the central
Hmm.
character in the story. And in a sense, everybody is the hero of their own story.
True, true.
But then the word began to mean more than that, and it began to mean people that were doing things for others and putting themselves at risk. Um, but yeah, I did find lots of heroes. Like you say, I admired very much the whistleblowers
Hmm.
and some of the political journalists who really did take a lot of risks to tell people what was actually happening in the world. So and of course, with the corona pandemic, there's a lot of heroic actions by nurses and doctors and people like that as well. I certainly have musical heroes, and it's not just to do with their music, but also their political stance. And a big one for me is Johnny Cash.
All right.
But also because in the songs that he sings, he's often very vulnerable in his songs, but he's always looking for strength. He's never really just complaining. He's trying to get through the difficulties in life, and he doesn't really give up hope. And I think that's quite heroic, actually.
An empty space. Seagulls are crying every day. Sometimes I think
I didn't really start off with that idea, but quite often I write lyrics in a kind of prose style, and then just try and I pick up a guitar or something and try and find a song in there. And those two songs, it's it just came out like that, you know. I realized that it was going to go in that direction, actually, because there's a kind of a cycle of chords behind, which is very suitable to that kind of form. And I didn't really set out to do it exactly like that, but it just came out like that. So it felt the natural thing for the songs.
I know a place, I'll take you there.
I wanted to make this album have a sort of sound palette that was running through it. The cantilé really helps, because you can put a cantilé on a lot of these songs, and that carries a kind of unity. And there's this strange sort of whisper about the Kalevala poem behind my thinking in the whole album. It kept sort of haunting me, really. I didn't really want to set out to make this sounding Scandinavian. I mean, I could have had Scandinavian fiddle playing on it, but I used the harmonium quite a lot. It's interesting you pick up on that Scandinavian feel. I think it's just part of the sort of sound environment that I live in, really.
Walk along the ash grey roads and visit Dark Sky Park tonight.
Well, I do think in terms of stories. It's just the way I sort of naturally do things. And when I play live shows, I sometimes tell stories about the songs and how I came to write them. And I think there are a few songs I heard a long time ago that had stories in them that really affected me, that sort of made me think, yeah, you can write a song that is a story. You know, it's not just impressions of something. And some songs manage to tell a very, very big story just in a small song, and I think that's wonderful. And of course, the way stories were passed down in the past was through songs, through the troubadours and through the sort of the folk singers and the bards of Scotland and Ireland and Finland, of course. So to me, songs and stories are very connected.
Welcome to the Middle Ages, where the past bites back through history's pages.
Of course, it worries me like it worries everybody, what's happening to the world. I think it's quite interesting with this pandemic time that people have had to slow down and maybe think a lot more. But the idea that the world is in danger of destruction is a very old idea. It stretches right back in history. Even in the time of Christ, they thought the world was going to end. And if you look into Shakespeare, you know, they talk about that as well. It's a very, very old idea, and it's part of the human sort of mindset, really, to think that the world's coming to an end.
We didn't build to last. The past should stay where it was, in ruined castles.
Well, I try and find the music that suits the lyric. You know, I generally start with an idea, not with the actual lyric, but an idea of a lyric or a title.
Okay.
And I think of music and also which instruments to use and how to arrange it so that it complements the lyric. So Dark Father has that, the accompaniment for that song would only suit that lyric. You know, it wouldn't suit another lyric.
True.
And I think that's true of a lot of the songs. Of course, sometimes, like a song like The Burning Pile, the tune that's at the very beginning of the album, which is an instrumental, that started off with just a mandolin part. And I tried to write a song, and I couldn't write a song. Couldn't find a song to fit. So I decided to develop it and just add things as they felt natural. And it developed into a much bigger instrumental. So that's kind of how I work. I think the difference with this album is that when I had ideas for instrumental songs, I decided to record them right away. And I actually had 2 more instrumentals that I left off this album. I had 5. When I play live shows, I do play instrumentals quite often, folk tunes or something like that. And it seems to be, it's quite good to have something that allows people to relax a bit, you know, because the lyrics, it's a lot to understand sometimes with the lyrics.
I remain. I've slept with one eye open to the wind and the rain. I confess that I forgot you as I played my part. I never knew.
Well, yeah, it's quite difficult with money at this time for all musicians. I think I'm luckier than most because I made 2 tours in Germany in the autumn. Solo artists, it's much easier than bands because solo artists can play in smaller places, or some of the venues I played, they moved me into a bigger place and just had more space between the chairs. So I still managed to carry on. But of course, this COVID situation also meant I had more time to write and record. So I was able to really think about the album and the right track order, and I wasn't in a rush. There were no deadlines, and that was very positive. And I've started writing more songs for the next album already. So I'm planning to tour in Germany in May and June, and England in July. It should go ahead, but if it doesn't, I'll just record and write because I have a studio here in Sweden, and I just carry on. So it's not time wasted for me. My father had a piano, and from a very young age I touched the piano. And I remember my aunt had this mandolin hanging on the wall, and I remember taking it off the wall and trying to play it. I lived in a world where there wasn't any music that inspired me, really. My father listened to classical music, and the music on the radio was terrible. It wasn't really till I heard blues music that I realized that music could be much more than this. It could really be something amazing. And I was lucky enough, when I was about 12 years old, I went to see Albert King, and that just blew my mind and made me realize that music was way more important than anything else. Yeah, first album I bought was Jeff Beck's first solo album called Truth.
All right.
And it had the Faces playing on it, and it's still a fantastic album. Actually, it's an extremely good album. I think there was a golden age in music, and we've passed it. There was a golden age from the late 50s to about 1972. There's so much fantastic music, and since then there've been a few good things, but it hasn't got that magic anymore. I remember writing songs when I was about 16, and I've actually got them somewhere,
Oh yeah.
but I can't think of them anymore. I haven't even thought of them for years.
Come ye young men all, and hear my story of how...
Oh yeah, it was exciting, and I couldn't hear anything. It was just a racket playing at school.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just a kind of haze of smoke and noise. But you could, I remember there was an energy though.
That brave and gallant youth did...
I always knew it was possible,
Uh-huh.
but I knew it would be very hard. And it was. It's difficult at any stage in the music business. It's tough at the bottom, it's tough in the middle, and it's tough at the top. But it's an immense privilege to be able to play music and earn a living as a musician. I really appreciate it as a privilege. No, I would just say I hope people get hold of this album and like it. And if anybody has any comments, they can write to me on Facebook and tell me what they think their favorite tracks are. And it's just nice to get comments from people. When I play shows, I generally go and talk to the audience afterwards, and I like to keep a contact with the audience.
All I've ever done is one dark father, dark star, dark sun.